Welcome to Construction Genius. Today's episode is going to sting just a little bit because we're talking about one of the most expensive habits in the construction industry, and that is bidding everything. If your estimating team is drowning, if your win rates are dropping, if your backlog looks full but your margins are skinny, you're not alone. Most contractors think they have a sales problem, but the truth is far more uncomfortable. You have a business problem that shows up in sales. My guest today is Matthew Newberger. He is back on the podcast and he breaks down the 10 roadblocks that quietly sabotage your ability to win the right work at the right margins. Those roadblocks have nothing to do with sharpening your pencil and everything to do with your vision, strategy, structure, metrics, culture, hiring, and leadership. And if you're tired of chasing every RFP, fighting with low bid competitors, and taking on projects that make your life miserable, this conversation will give you a blueprint for getting out of that cycle permanently. This is going to be one of the episodes you can share with your whole leadership team, so let's dive right in. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Matthew, welcome to Construction Genius.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Eric.
I'm glad to have you because you're an expert in construction sales. And I know all of my clients want to win the right projects with the right clients in the right locations so that they can make money and do it with as little hassle as possible.
Right.
So why isn't that happening enough for contractors? Matthew, welcome.
There's a lot of reasons. It's a big question, Eric. You have different size contractors, you have service contractors, you have general contractors, you have all the trades, right? So contractors is a big word. And for a lot of what we see, you sort of have these different size organizations. And so for many of the contractors probably listening to this show, they're in what we call the lower middle market, meaning the way we're classifying that is they're smaller businesses, under $100 million in revenue. And there are a lot of reasons why they may struggle in terms of becoming successful. And so I wish I could say it's one thing, but I'll give you my favorite list of 10. And if you want, I can shoot it to you if your listeners want. But
yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
One is we don't have a clear vision for the future, and that's because we're exhausted. This is a hard business, and it gets harder if you're not organized because complexity is exponential, not linear. Next, they lack clear, well-documented strategies. Who are we going after? Why are we going after them? What markets? What's our addressable market? How are we going to do that? How many people do we need? That's a lot of stuff when all you're trying to do is win projects and execute those projects without missing timelines, which can be expensive in more ways than one. 3 is the lack of critical metrics that define business performance. We're just trying to get work. That works up until you get to about $5 million. And then what you see is the leader typically has a strong hand in a specific discipline of construction. They really know how to estimate jobs, which means they have to do all of that. The problem is they can't scale it. So they don't have any metrics to tell them the health of the business. And that becomes the limiting factor. So they end up being a $5 million or $10 million business with very razor thin margins for years and years and years. Or they lack well-defined organizational structure and job definitions. So people may not be living up to their ability to do their job, which allows the business to continue to grow. A lot of them don't have, these lower middle markets don't have good, strong financial visibility or acumen. If you think about most construction companies that are in the lower middle market, they didn't go to CEO school.
Yeah.
Their family was in the business. They got in the business. They learned how to go on a job site. They learned how to talk to different tradespeople. They learned how to maybe put together an estimate or look at blueprints, but their strong suit is not financial acumen.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have that, but you better have somebody in your team who does. or you're going to stay where you are and you're going to get more and more tired. You're not going to want to grow your business because growing your business means pain and risk. And who wants to lean into that? The incentive systems for the team are poorly devised or not at all, or random, or in a document somewhere that nobody knows where it is or what it means. There's no cultural norms. Culture is so important in a construction business. And the ones that we've worked with that we've seen go beyond $1 billion in revenue and scale have very strong cultural norms, values, and beliefs. And I don't mean stuff on walls. I mean, you can see the way they behave. A lot of them don't have management systems to drive information sharing or accountability. And because that information sharing doesn't happen, the smartest person, usually the owner, ends up getting all the work put back on their desk. And the people that listen to your podcast know exactly what that feels like, and it causes pain. And so we need management systems that drive. A lot of times when I'm brought into construction organizations, and this creates friction for me and them, when I have to tell them the problem in your business growing isn't your people. It's you. I don't mean that in a way of saying you're a bad person. I mean, some contractors' ego cannot take that. It can't be them. So fix my people. And if you have that mentality, what it means is we're missing the management system to effectively enforce a way of doing business. And one of the things I often say to my clients is capital, people, resources, you can think what you want, they're abundant. The biggest limitation in a business is the leader's ability to learn and grow. 9 is the lack of effectiveness in a hiring process. When we need people, we go get people. You need to be prospecting for people like you do for business, if you want to think of it that way. Now, some contractors are going to say, well, look, we just bid. Well, I get it. If that's the same mentality you're using to attract people, you're going to struggle. We have a contractor, Eric, that has grown exponentially, but the CEO and I strategize about who's in the market, what businesses are changing, and where might there be really good people that might be, because of change, looking for a new opportunity. Yeah. And those people we've brought on bring lots of business with them, and they are very capable people that otherwise wouldn't be looking for a job. That's an effective hiring process. So if leaders are listening to this, and the question they need to ask themselves is, how many hours a week am I dedicating to looking at the market, contacting people that are high performers that I want to attract to my business? And the last is they lack any sort of employment or employee development capability. There's no systems and processes in place to consistently develop people. Now, most of us think like that because we learn something and then we go on to something else. But there are certain things that you just need to reinforce and constantly skill build against. And a lot of these smaller organizations don't know how to procure that or how to work with that. So I know it was a long-winded answer, but those are the 10. And I'm happy to send that to you if you want to forward it out to your leaders.
Yeah, send that to me and we'll have that in the show notes. And just to reiterate, clear vision or lack of clear vision for the future, lack of well-documented strategies. That's number 2. Number 3 is lack of critical metrics that define performance. 4 is a well-defined organizational structure and job definitions. 5 has to do with a strong financial visibility and acumen. 6 is incentive systems or lack thereof. 7, no cultural norms. 8, lack of management systems to drive information sharing and accountability. 9 is a lack of effectiveness in the hiring process. And then 10 is a lack of employee development. Is that right?
You nailed it.
Okay. Now, someone listening to this show might ask, what does that have to do with sales? Right? Because we didn't use the word selling in any of that, perhaps with maybe the well-documented strategy.
Right.
So help us with that. What does that have to do with sales?
Well, the biggest problem when it comes to sales is that if you don't have these things in place, taking on more sales equals pain.
Yeah. Bankruptcy in some cases.
Right.
Yeah, we don't go out of business because of the jobs we don't get. We go out of businesses because of the jobs we do get and then can't execute.
Exactly right. And it means that we execute those poorly. So let me give you some examples. The mentality that I often hear, especially as businesses are smaller, but they want to grow, is we got to keep our people busy. We got to get work in the door. We got to get backlog. And those things are true, but too broad. Specifically, it has to be healthy backlog. So when it comes to sales, What are the projects we love that we're passionate? Our people get excited about doing. When we close that business, when we get those projects, everybody's excited because they know how to do that work. They know all the variables, the conditions that could apply. They look like experts in front of the owner, or if they're a trade working with a general contractor, they're super valuable. People don't like going into the unknown. That's scary. And when you go into unknown projects because you're keeping your people busy, it means you didn't really identify the projects you were supposed to be doing, that your team is great at doing, that you can easily scale and do more of that work. So again, that operating system, all those 10 things we mentioned include having the platform to support loading more projects into the business. And so
it's interesting because one thing I'm picking up on here is with those 10 things, if those 10 things are in place, then the way that I build my projects will be more efficient, less problematic, and as a result of that, more enjoyable. And that would then, it's sort of a virtuous cycle, right? Because that then incentivizes me to want to pick up more work and then to be able to execute it well. Whereas if they're not in place and everything's completely painful, then it makes me much more reactive and prone to make mistakes when it comes to picking up projects.
Right. So Eric, let's back that down for a second to number one was lack of clear vision for the future.
Yeah.
If my clear vision of the future is, there's two types of business in construction, right? You have lifestyle business and you have, I want to grow a business that adds value to stakeholders, our customers, and our employees.
So let's assume that we're the second group of people.
We're the second group of people. Yeah. So I have to define the type of work we do, the type of project we work on, and the quality at which we do that work. Otherwise, I risk being lumped in and compared to people that are nothing like me. And I mean people, I mean other contractors, right? And so they end up competing on price, and that has to do with your vision more than anything else. You should want to win every project you quote. However, you don't want to win it on price.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about that, though. This is really important here. So let's say I've done a tremendous job at picking a niche.
Yep.
And I'm thinking of a company that I know. They're a heavy civil company, but they're not doing roads, right? And what they're doing is they're focusing on complex and demanding work. But in their geography, in the past year, complex and demanding work that they focus on has dried up. And they're now in a conundrum. The conundrum is this. Do I want to go start competing with Fred, who has a dozer and a backhoe or whatever and can, throw out a few miles of road and do it pretty cheaply and lives, project to project? Or do I want to stick with my niche and suffer the pain of not having a strong backlog and all of the uncertainty that brings into my business? What do I do in that situation?
Yeah, well, so what's happened in that particular case is what you're describing is the contractor's total addressable market has shrunk. Has it disappeared?
Right? It hasn't disappeared, but it has shrunk. And so that begs a deeper question. What are we going to do then with overhead, for instance? How flexible are we with working on our overhead so that we can get through this particular point of the market? How would you work with a contractor there?
Yeah. So the contractor, first of all, has to know their market inside and out, right?
They do. They know it inside and out.
And so they have to understand the upcoming projects and the trends shaping the industry. And what you're telling me is right now, the trends are negative and the projects are bad. So they're going to have to evaluate, I'm going to try to relate this to something that most people have heard of, which is a SWOT analysis on their market. And they're going to have to look at where their skill sets and capabilities match up with what the market has to offer. If the market goes away, in other words, if they're Blockbuster and it's now Netflix is on the scene, or they're Kodak and now there's Instagram, the hard reality they may face is they don't have enough of an addressable market for their skill set. So they're going to have to pivot. They're going to have to pick a new market that is on a growth trend. One of the most important things you do as a contractor is figure out where is the growth going to be in my market over time. And where, by the way, are there potentials where they're being ignored? In other words, right now, they're focused on public roads. Is that right?
No, they're focused on like wastewater plants and heavy civil, piping, complex, demanding, all that kind of stuff. They work with food manufacturers, with wastewater and all that kind of stuff.
Got it.
But they come from a heavy civil background.
So what other adjacent projects are in a growth trend or at least in a stable trend, and they have to look at their value proposition, how they're built as an organization. Do they have a defensible value proposition to go into those adjacent markets?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And that's where that SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, has to be done on a regular basis. Now, I think the dilemma that a lot of contractors get into is this, so I've invested a bunch of time, money, and effort, whether in equipment, whether in people, whether in marketing, in this particular market. And then I see the market dip. And then the question is how long is it going to dip? Can I hang out long enough so that I can take some pain, but it's not devastating? Because if I do a pivot and then I'm competing with Fred with his backhoe and doing these cheap jobs and not making a lot of money and getting a lot of pain, and then all of a sudden my market comes back, they're kind of in the middle there. You know what I mean?
Again, I'll go back to financial acumen and understanding that there are going to be market fluctuations. And if you let go of your people during a market fluctuation, you're going to find yourself then scrambling when the market comes back, right?
Yeah,
so
it's tough, huh?
are you deep enough to weather market fluctuation? And the answer is, if you're not, you're going to have to let people go and shrink your business or find an adjacent market. You may decide to compete with Fred for a little while. The problem with that over time is that's going to keep your doors open, but that's probably not going to be sustainable, because Fred, the guy with the backhoe and the equipment in his backyard, doesn't have your overhead.
That's the thing.
So you're going to bleed away cash. There's only so much you can do to shrink your business before you overshrunk. So you putting in construction, you have to look at the macro picture of what fluctuation. If you're looking, let's use an example everyone can relate to, regardless of the type of contractor they are. If you look at the stock market,
yep,
and you're investing in the Standard & Poor's index, you know that in any 1, 2, 3 year stretch, you could invest and have less money in 3 years.
Yep.
You enter the investment period understanding that, or dollar cost averaging in, so as an example. So if you're in a business where there is going to be market fluctuation or market impact, are you swatting your business? Are you understanding the external market risks, and are you financially prepared to sustain those? And if the answer is no, you're either going to have to pivot to an adjacent market, or you're going to have to shrink your business, or owners, you're going to have to stop getting paid for a little while.
Yeah.
So that's a harsh reality. But if you're caught by surprise, and this happened, your options are going to be less than if you planned in advance.
All right, quick break to talk about my book, Construction Genius. This is what I want you to do. Go to Amazon, search for the book, read all of the 5-star reviews, because there's a ton of them. Over 50 to be precise. And the reason I want you to read them is because real people wrote those reviews who've actually read the book. And it'll give you an idea of why you should go and buy a copy right now on Amazon. And here's the deal. If you purchase 10 or more copies for your company, and then send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, I'll come in via Zoom and do a 1-hour Q&A and a bonus training session with your team at no charge. I normally charge $4,500 for an hour of my time. And again, for you, I'll do it at no charge if you buy 10 or more copies of my book. And the reason you should buy it is all in the title. It's effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS, leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. So if you're in the construction industry, this book is for you. So you can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on Audible in the audio version as well, narrated by yours truly. And I know you'll really enjoy it. So go out and get the book. And now back to the interview.
It's interesting, though, because human nature, it's like, it seems to happen like this for many people, not maybe for everyone, but, let's say I'm riding a wave, right? And sometimes I'm not sure if I'm riding a wave or if it's because of my brilliance. You know what I'm saying? And so most of the time we tend to default to our own brilliance. I must be an awesome businessman because, my company's doing so well.
Of course.
And in that moment, right, we just keep doing what we're doing and we sort of forget the big picture. So how often, even if I'm in a very healthy market that I've got a fat backlog and it looks like it's going to be good for 2, 3, 4 years, whatever the case is, how often should I be doing that strategic analysis so that I do get my head out of the weeds and I'm able to take a look at that vision aspect of it and also that strategy aspect of it?
Well, you should be talking to your best clients or repeat clients on an ongoing basis. Your planning should be no less than once a year, but I would say 6 months now. And there's some reasons for that. So I'll back that up. But to go back to your analogy, and this is the dangerous part, right? The enemy of thriving is arriving. The enemy of thriving is arriving. So when people are successful, they party. When they fail, they ponder, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to party when things are successful. And there's a great book by Jim Collins.
Ponder. They're supposed to ponder when things are successful.
Right. Why is it successful? What's going to get in my way? So the most successful leaders are what Jim Collins referred to in his book, Great by Choice. They are productively paranoid. That doesn't mean they're ridiculously paranoid and everything scares them. It means they ask themselves, where is the market headed? And what is changing? A lot of people don't realize this now, but AI has changed the marketplace.
Yeah.
Most buyers right now, in a study that we read by Gartner, most buyers are using AI when developing RFQs, RFPs. They're inviting more people to the party now because, and we actually did it. We went through an exercise of starting a project on ChatGPT, asking about the project. What should I know as the owner? What should I know as the municipality? And how long would it take me to generate the RFP and RFQ and send it out? It was 6 minutes. So if you just think about that for a minute, if it takes me 6 minutes and I can send that to 10 people instead of 3, which took me a lot more time in the past, I can now get 10 people working on this and learning from all 10. I can de-risk my project by just getting more input. And again, if contractors have the mentality, I just bid everything, because if I don't bid, then I won't get invited to the next one.
Right.
So there is a point here about reviewing your business and the trends. And I would suggest that from a management operating framework, you are looking at business trends at least quarterly and making decisions on any pivots or changes you need to make every 6 months. And that's because right now you could be spending, your estimating department could be on the verge or already being flooded with more opportunity, and it's creating costs for you, but your win rates are also dropping.
Yeah.
And so back to your question here, that's how often they should be evaluating. I think you have to be looking at trends that are being caused by the convenience of AI for your buyer. And buyers that are in projects $1 million plus universally say that using an LLM or any sort of AI to help vet you as a contractor is valuable. And human beings tend to go where the value is. So we have to understand these trends are going to continue. Now, governmental or environmental type projects, those are going to fluctuate based on politics, local politics, or depending on what type of work you do.
Yeah.
Those are going to be things that you should know, right? And if you're selling to owners of buildings in Washington, D.C., it's been a little rocky lately.
No, I got that. Okay, so it's interesting. Again, we've been diving into this idea of strategy. It's almost as if I'm covering those 10 areas that we talked about at the top of the conversation, then my selling process or my selling experience should be a lot more fruitful and productive. And it doesn't necessarily depend on me being some sort of dazzling salesperson. If I have a solid company, then create solid projects, which gives me solid references and the ability to price jobs correctly, and also provide references from those completed jobs that give people the confidence to do something other than pick the lowest number.
Yes. And I would say it this way. Contractors we talk to fall into one of two camps. One, it's bid everything. So if we go back to the number one, clear vision of the future, and you go sort of through financial acumen, all the different things you need to do, good culture, to your point, to grow my business, to grow the number of projects I have, if I know the types of projects I want, and you're right, I don't have to be this amazing salesperson, but I do need to have fundamental things in place. So it's sort of that saying, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And so your plan when it comes to executing the vision from a sales standpoint is, one, you have to decide whether you're a bid everything mentality organization. And if you are, then just bid everything.
Yeah.
But if you actually want to grow your business, you cannot overburden your estimating department, which means you have to have a checklist when it comes to selling. And that has to be one, to your point, you have to understand your market. You have to build the relationships before the project's on the street. We touched on that last time a little bit, but you also have to be good at identifying the types of opportunities that are a good fit for you. And that can't be subjective. That has to be a list. So we look at that as a bid criteria list.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, half the companies we come across have something and about 10% use it.
Yeah, totally, dude.
And then you have to understand how to team in your market. Architects, engineers, suppliers, other contractors. You have to understand how to work with your community. You can't just go to an owner and say, I'm the best at building hotels. Or you can't just go to a municipality cluster of buyers and say, hey, next time you guys have a project, would you consider me? How about lunch or golf? Right? And in a lot of cases, they're going to cut you off from doing that anyway, but they will talk to you. The next is you've got to understand how to qualify and say no to a project and get rid of the mentality that when you say no, you've cut off your opportunity for future. And again, if you want to kind of go into the tactics here, oftentimes, and it's crazy, and we've had contractor came back to me yesterday and said, he said, I told the owner, no, we didn't think this was the right fit. And the owner fought back and made changes to accommodate us. It wasn't until we said, we don't think this is the right project, and here are the reasons why. It wasn't like a fancy move and manipulation. It was fact-based reasons why this wasn't the right project. And so we have to be willing to qualify and stick to the qualification. There's a sort of a belief I have, which is contractors don't go broke from bad workmanship. They go broke from silent assumptions. It's the conversations they avoid.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Just as you were speaking there, I thought about this idea of being willing to walk away is more important than walking away itself.
Correct.
So you're talking to the owner and the initial RFP is not in your core competency, but the owner is willing to make changes, and you're clear with that with the owner. So you're not a beggar, right? You're not a beggar. You're not desperate for work because you're doing what you need to do in order to have a good pipeline. So therefore you have such power when you're in the room with someone, so that if it doesn't go the way that you want it to go, then you are willing to walk away, but you're not there being a jerk about it. You're just saying, hey, this is the way that we work, and these are the types of projects we work on. And perhaps the owner then would be able to adjust because they want you so much because of the quality you deliver.
Exactly. Which I really like is you said, instead of playing the game of the buyer, invite them to play your game. As long as your game is better, they're going to take that. I really liked that statement. I thought that well encapsulated it. I just tell contractors, look, if you want bigger projects, bigger margins, you got to stop acting like a vendor and start thinking like a partner.
Yeah.
In the moment as a contractor, you take control of the conversation is the moment your business becomes profitable. I need to see the drawings.
Stop a minute. Yeah. You just said something. The moment you take control of the conversation.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. Let's just say on an initial conversation, how do I take control of the conversation? How am I prepared to do that?
Well, number one, you're prepared because you prepared in advance your bid qualification checklist. These are the things we need in order to be involved. If you can't meet that checklist, you need to say to your buyer, unfortunately, unless we could get this information, we would be unable to bid responsibly.
Right.
And that ultimately could lead to you having change orders or problems with the project down the road. We wouldn't want to do that to you. Is it possible to get this?
So hold on. Let me just stop you there. I want the audience to notice that the way you framed that question or that statement was in terms of what's in it for them, not what's in it for you.
Correct. Now, you said something at the beginning of the call. You've got the lifestyle business. That's where the owner's trying to make as much money for himself or herself as possible. Sure. And then you have a shareholder value business, what I'll refer to as a growth business. Growth businesses' number one thing they take care of is that client, and the client can tell.
Yeah.
If it's self-serving, then I won't do this because it's not in my best interest.
Yes.
Well, I get that, but the market feels that. A growth business says, I have a responsibility to you. As a matter of fact, it's part of our vision to take care of clients like this and prevent change orders, cost overruns, project delays. That's our vision for what we are as an organization. So to your point, and it's an important one to emphasize heavily, it cannot be about you. If you're a growth business, it has to be about successful projects and taking care of your client.
Yeah. The word that just popped into my head there was this idea of reciprocation, right? And it's a classic, everyone understands this from living, that if my first thought is, I'm here to serve you and to help you, and I'm willing to give, that kicks in this virtuous cycle, as long as the person is not a psychopath, that they will then be willing to give in return. It almost obligates them. There's something in human nature about it. It almost obligates them to then give something back because I have given in the first place.
Yes. And Eric, I'll add to that. There are people that are in construction that can come off as a psychopath because they've been burned so many times.
Oh, wow.
And so you have to be so good, so damn good at your job that you can take somebody off that ledge and not fight back. Most of construction is, how do I get the blame on somebody else? And sometimes the way people are talking to each other is because of this belief that all starts with taking on projects you shouldn't be taking on and not saying no when you should say no.
Yeah.
And the thing I wish I could tell every contractor is you're not losing jobs because your price is too high. You're losing jobs because you're letting buyers compare you to people that shouldn't even be in your league, and you're not willing to say no. You're not willing to say, sorry, this doesn't fit our criteria. Let them decide if they want to come back and play your game. But if they don't, understand the road you're going to go down does not lead to a happy place. And I believe it should be fun, but it can be a hard business if your mindset and approach is wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we started the conversation with those list of 10 items that a company needs to focus on. And again, those are in the show notes so that you can get those and cogitate on them. If you were to prioritize them, are they in a prioritized order, or where would you, like if someone was listening to this podcast and they were thinking, Matthew, Eric, where do I start right now? Which one would you start on first?
I would use it as a checklist and score yourself and have your executive team score you.
Okay, like on a 1 to 5 or something like that?
Yeah, you can use a 1 to 5 scale. That's fine. And I think the hardest thing I see in the smaller businesses, again, small means under 100 million in revenue, is a lot of times owners don't want the honesty.
Yeah.
They're afraid of putting a vision out because they could fail and look stupid.
Yeah.
But the one thing I'd say, if an owner is listening here, or somebody that impacts the owner in their decision-making process, is you have to understand that you're not supposed to be good at everything, right? You've got sales focus, you've got customer focus, employee focus, product focus, operational focus, financial focus. You got all these different areas, and typically the owner has a dominant hand. It's okay that the owner is good at the estimating part of the job, right? It doesn't mean you're supposed to know everything. Give yourself a break. So the first thing I would do is I would use that list of 10, and you and I can sometimes be painted with the brush of we're a consultant, right? And consultants, blah, 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 blah. You need an outside professional opinion on your business.
Yeah.
Right. And then you got to listen. Consultants aren't going to do the job for you, but a good thing to do is to hire a consultant that understands that. And I would recommend you, obviously, you care enough to put a podcast out that is already helping to educate owners and create awareness to get some insight on that list of 10 and evaluate. So it's going to be different starting places for everybody. But it's not as simple, Eric, as going out and hiring or buying like a management system.
No, right? It's not. Yeah, there's no magic pills. That's one thing that everyone needs to know.
Right. But you do need to surround yourself with people that have those strengths if you do not have them.
Yes.
They need to be in your business. Otherwise, that is continually going to be a blind spot. And what you'll see is your ceiling, you sort of hit a ceiling revenue and margin wise, and then a bad market cycle hits for you. And now you're trying to rebuild your business. So the time to do that is now. The better time was yesterday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. Okay, so Matthew, I really appreciate your insights. And by the way, the link to our first discussion is going to be in the show notes as well. So you'll get part 1 and part 2. Please tell us just a little bit more about yourself and where people can get in touch with you.
So Neuberger & Company, we are a Sandler franchise that focuses on construction and industrials. And what we do is really, we drive value for our clients through predicting and qualifying or sort of quantifying outcomes and services. What that means is we install sales and sales management methodology for contractors. And we allow them to have a predictable dashboard of what's going to happen in the future. That's our focus area. Those other 9 areas that we talked about are areas that they have to have in place in order for our work to be effective with them, just to put that into context. So if someone were to look at that checklist and say, well, Matt can help with all those, I'll point them out and then point them to somebody that can help them. Our job is to help contractors win work and deliver that work profitably and ethically for their clients.
And how can people get in touch with you?
The best way is to find me on LinkedIn. Certainly you go to my website, which is newberger.sandler.com. If you type Matthew Newberger into any search, you'll probably find me. And of course, they can just find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place if they want to hit me up and ask additional questions.
Beautiful. All the links will be in the show notes. Matthew, I've had a lot of fun. I really appreciate your insights. And thanks again for coming on the show today.
My pleasure, Eric. Thanks for having me. These are fun.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Feel free to check out the show notes for all the resources. Connect with Matthew if you'd like to do so on LinkedIn. And in the show notes is also a link to our previous discussion. Put those two together and you're going to have some terrific ideas to help you run your construction business more effectively. Give us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts, and even give us a rating and a review. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit. And always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.